Okay, welcome back everyone to the 412th Knowledge Seekers Workshop here on Thursday, December 23rd, 2021. This brings us to the second half of our show here, and I assume, Mr. Kesh, you would like to entertain questions here in the next bit?
Yep, if it's possible, if there's any question left after 8 years.
Okay, we have a question from Jan in the YouTube. Thanks, Mr. Kesh, for the promising words. However, all we see is threats between Russia, China, and Iran on one side, and the 3+1 plus Israel on the other side. How can one be hopeful in such an atmosphere?
We sit with the nation of Iran. We sit with the nation of Russia and China. And we will prevail. The truth, what was released to IAEA last Monday, that changed the course of the negotiation, and suddenly on Friday was a lot to be seen, was a fundamental change in the way the truth was opened up. And it became an embarrassment to the American state. In a way, what we saw and what we delivered was a very simple document, but very powerful, that IAEA claims to be not knowing the truth, and they were carried down and carried away with it. The reality is America is a collection and run through the 3+1, which is what we call America, China, America, Germany, France, and UK. And they have to support, or they have in a way to wash their face with a shame job what they did and what they claim to be, and how Israel took the position of doing it. We have opened the hand of the state of Israel's lies into IAEA. And they could see it clearly, how Netanyahu lied, and the present government of Israel is following the same pattern near enough, but they're not sure where Netanyahu lied his lies. A copy of the information and the direction is in the hand of the Israeli government. They know how they lied, and they know how the situation was changed. But we don't see any problem. We will prevail because the knowledge will, the truth will, and we don't see much in the efforts of America and the other states of Europe, which are actually, America is their, what I call the kinder and the child of them. And this is fundamental for us. The power which sits with the knowledge and will be delivered is powerful enough to change direction and position. We are not going for governments anymore that we have to battle. We go to bring the scientists from all nations that the government benefit by the knowledge, and they change their way. We separated the Keshmer nation from many, many governments in the past 6 weeks. Some of you might have noticed, but we still work within the governments, the connections we have. In our invitation to NASA in past 2-3 weeks, we are very clear in what we are going to do and how we expect the NASA scientists to work with the Iranian and Chinese, and how it will be transparent. It is not going to be easy, but it is a job will be done. We will give access to the space agencies to be live in testing. Doesn't matter who they are. The way we do the Zooms for the health or agriculture, We set a structure that the NASA scientists and the Russians and the Chinese all be online all the time. Sooner or later they interact, sooner or later they learn from each other. And in a way, we create a race to space through knowledge and peace. This is the only way man will succeed. So, to me, and to what we understand and what we said, what I call Western Bloc is irrelevant, even though they want to make themselves relevant. One disclosure shut the whole operation of the United States in opposition with Iran, and they gave all sorts of concessions in. We have other documents we can do worse to bring the last punch. So don't worry about 3+1. The 3+1 counts as 0 when it comes to the work and the functionality of the foundation and what we aim for.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kesh. We have a hand up here with someone new, I believe, Giovanni. Would you like to go ahead there, please? If you could say who you are and where you're from, that would be good as well. Hello, Giovanni. Can you go ahead? It could have been an inadvertent hand up there, I suppose. Okay, I'll just remind the attendees, they can put up their virtual hands in order to ask a question here. We can activate your microphone. Okay, we have Giovanni's put something in the Q&A here, so perhaps I can translate that and see what he was trying to ask. In Portuguese, good morning, Mr. Kesh. At what time will we see this change actually be used on our planet?
It already has started. There is no time. It's already in progress and is developing. You missed the train, as we call it. What's the next question?
Okay, from Dan in the Q&A, who asks, how has the way of thinking changed the understanding of the people who came into contact with this knowledge 7 years ago? And what is the impact on one who came to know it now 1 month? In other words,
the knowledge is the same. You can be enlightened in 1 second for the whole thing mankind has read for or developed for thousands of years. Enlightenment has no time and no space. We always said that. In the dimension of physicality, I worked for 40 years to understand the creation of gravity. And the enlightenment came in 1 second. And I could not understand how stupidly for 40 years I could not see it. And I've been playing with it. Enlightenment doesn't need studying. Enlightenment is just there. When you enlighten, it comes in second. I worked, I designed, I drove since age of 8 to understand gravity, how I can manipulate, how can I understand to create it. And at the age of 40 plus, it was there in 1 second. And that changed the whole course. So you don't need to study. You just need to be enlightened. And it's so simple.
Is there anything anything you could have done in those 40 years that would have shortened the
Nope.
time to get to that point of enlightenment?
No.
Have to go through. So I mean,
Believe
it's
it or not, I did.
all in an instant, but it's like the guy. Go ahead.
It's the soul of creator within you, which enlightens you. I developed, I tested every possible things. And it wasn't time for it. It was not time for it. I clearly remember when I understood. I just literally went to a corner and wept. How I missed it. The maturity wasn't there. Still, when I remember that moment, it's the same emotions. It's the same when you're asked or you're given the responsibility to carry the message and you don't accept it, you run away from it because you're not mature enough. And that battle took a long time. You get enlightened by the knowledge or by any other things instantaneously in one split of a second. You can read all the books in the universe, but you never understand it. But it takes 1 second to be enlightened. And you know the whole knowledge of the creation. It's if the light of the creator shines on you, that's what you reflect. You never possess because it's not yours. Any other question?
Okay, we have a hand up here with Salamia and our Thomas as well after that. Go ahead, Salamia.
Thank you, Rick. Hello, Mr. Kesh. Hello, everyone. I have a question related to spiritual democracy. Do you think that this is a solution to accommodate theocracy and perhaps totalitarianism with Occidental democracy, or the notion of democracy in general, which gives freedom and respects the freedoms of all kinds of freedoms and liberty of human being? Thank you very much for your answer.
Freedom is the choice of the man, and not what is put by paper for some to control the others. No constitution exists in the universe, and no human rights orders exist in the universe. You have created for yourself to belong to, or to control, or to abuse. Or you have subjected yourself to be abused. So democracy is a meaningless word in the world of creation. because the freedom is yours in every dimension. Nobody controls no soul except the man himself or any other creature.
Thank you very much. It's clear. Thanks.
Okay, our Thomas, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Cash. This is Thomas from Switzerland. And good morning also to you, Rick. What I wanted to do is just to thank you for all your patience, for all your wise remarks, and for Rick, all the thanks for every week. I don't know how many times you are there for everybody, and I wish to all of us freedom. We will choose it, and I wish everybody a very, very happy new 2022. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. And Jan is asking a question in the YouTube, Mr. Kesh, going back to your moment of enlightenment. He says, what was the trigger for the enlightenment? Being detached?
It's trying to sort it out. It's not, maybe yes, maybe partially yes. When you let go a lot of things, then you have time to work with other things, to bring a lot of other things through. I was telling this to some friends, I think to my cousins, in the past few weeks, been talking. I became a millionaire when I was 27 years old. And I remember going home and I said to my mom, I'm retiring. I've done enough. I earned what I wanted to do. I achieved the dream of being a multimillionaire. She said to me, little boy, you're only 27 and you got another 50 years ahead of you. Can you please shut this, please, in the background? And she said to me, you cannot retire at the age of 27. I said, yes, I'm retiring. I had enough. I achieved what I want. I want to go back to my research. And my retirement lasted less than 3 weeks. The lure of making a lot of money became more powerful than research, but the still research was going on in the back. Did that again in mid-30s when I reached another position with opening of the Eastern Bloc and everything else. And money making wasn't in 6 digits, 7 digits anymore. And I retired again and I went back in. And in 2000, I made myself a promise. I'll walk away. Because if I don't walk away, the way financially I was creating money was beyond imagination. And for a 30-odd-year-old man to do this was unbelievable. And I never showed my wealth or anything else. I lived a very normal life. the way I do today. I lived extremely normal life. Even closest people to me were not aware of the wealth, because it wasn't mine. I always consider it as a game. You go to casino, you gamble. I gamble into the business world, and it somehow paid off. And it wasn't all the time successful. I always said I failed 95% of the time, but the other 5% was so successful that it literally mastered the 95, which are mediocre or just some failures, a lot of failures, because I learned from the failures. And in 2000, I made a decision that said, if I don't walk away, money will eat me. I got involved with governments at a very high level. I worked with presidents and prime ministers and got involved with all sorts of things. And in that level, you don't talk about €1,000, you talk about tens of millions. Controlling confiscated goods of the British government at the highest level for millions of euros, pounds a year, tens of hundreds of millions. It was just a game. It was another game. The same with oil industry, the same came with the diamond business and everything else. But I had to walk away. But meanwhile, I had to keep my head very strong. I'm not going back to. I lived through a very rough time when I betrayed by the Belgians in lying to me to go to Belgium. And they literally brought us to our knees. But I promised myself I don't go back to world of finance, to money. And I kept to it. And I said, if the wealth is going to be made through the Keshe Foundation, and it stays with the Keshe Foundation when I go. And it worked that way. I'm an extremely ruthless businessman. Those who've been around me are fair. I tell you what I do, and I do what I say. I pay. I don't play games, not paying a bill. This is right, this is wrong, something is short. Everybody knew I did my deal on the table. And they always said, never deal with Keshe, because he sticks to the word on the table. And that was it. Money became detachment. I detached myself from the world of finance, but within it, I still had to live. I didn't go back to what I established in the past, and I just left it. Overnight, I didn't attend any of my offices worldwide. The running of the Keshe Foundation, you see different countries, to me is a natural process, because I established such an organization in the 1980s, 90s. So for me, international work, hands off, and letting people to make their mistakes in businesses is normal. But I didn't go back to it. Detachment. I detached myself totally from financial world the way I did, that I could put the finance in the back of the Keshe Foundation. Then it would have become not what it is today. But now we do the same thing, but we bring through the financing the peace work, not to live with. I live a comfortable life. I always live the comfortable life, except the 2 years the Belgians cheated us. That's their manner of life. From 2005 to 2007, we really suffered 2008 because they betrayed, lied, cheated, worse than Chinese, stole and cajoled. As we've seen, 30 years they've done that. They had their top agents sitting in the house. Then she's gone back home to the Belgians, where everybody thought it would not be. We've been betrayed. The boss called back. And he will understand how we've been betrayed from the beginning. But I never went back. I stayed detached from financial world. And I could have had extremely luxurious life. Not I could have had, I have. But it was to be detached. And it's very hard when you know you have the wealth, but you have to stay away from it because you made a promise to yourself to bring that change. And we did, and achieved, and became. And it came totally through sincerity of many, many knowledge seekers. They gave the promise of their life to serve, and I gave them the promise of to protect. And we did, and we betrayed. And in so many ways, it's very hard to be detached when you know you have a lot of attachments. And you can live with it. You can accept it. Because when the harsh time comes, there's a time when you get tested and say, okay, I'll go back. Once you go back, you can't get out of it. And for me, there are those who are around, they can tell you, I used to pick up a $500,000 check for just 2 handshakes, just as a profit. 30 years ago, $500,000, $1 million was a lot. And that was just a breakfast job. And to see what you had, Rolls Royces, private jets, everything else, and you walk away from it, to choose not to be a hermit, but to know that the knowledge and what you have promised to your Creator is more important than a few bricks and metals. Those who were around me at that time, and some are still, know around about 15th of December to first week of January, I spent all my time in the most luxurious hotels around the world because it was, to me, normality. I worked a few weeks a year. The rest was just a pleasure. Being able to research without anybody knowing. I spent a lot of time in air, just testing, watching the horizon, the clouds, the skies. Up there, nobody touches you. And you're on your own. And you try very hard to understand. But being detached from the physical world, it's not very hard once you understand the what we call the target. The outcome is much bigger than a few bricks and mortar. And we had enough training in different worlds of what we call negotiation, diplomacy, and politics. And so when I deal with officials, is not knowing, is knowing exactly how they work, because I lived amongst them. I was taught by them. I had a beautiful mentor who took me as a son at a young age, called Bill Crammond, Lord Bill Crammond, the Lord of the House of Commons, or what they call House of Lords of England. He taught me a lot. Bill was a point for me to understand diplomacy and the world of banking, as the family owned the Bank of Scotland. My eyes was opened up in how things have been done. That is all. And with him, we realized a lot. He was one of the royal aristocratic line for a long time. And he showed me how simple it is to live amongst these people. And this has become part of it. Detachment is the easiest part. But not going back to it is the hardest part, because points come when you actually look for a food on the table and you know, I have so much, but if I go, it breaks what I promised myself, what I promised to my Creator. And you go through the harsh time. But those harsh times are the test time for you to be tested. Are you resolute, or you walk away, or you go back to? And it's not easy. Many of you will have problem with this, to be detached. There's 1 or 2 people in the Keshe Foundation who've done that. BC Alex in Nigeria. And others around us, to walking away and to becoming detached, to be able to add to the knowledge and with it understand more. And it's not easy. But when a good time comes, we share. and we let it be the knowledge or whatever else. Any other question?
Yes, Mr. Kesh. Just a second here while I get my questions lined up. Dan had a question regarding the peace process and what impact do the emotions of frustration and anger have in that situation? How does that, let me see, another part to that. You said earlier that we have to get rid of the emotions, that the human emotions are what's kind of interfering and so on. How do you deal, or how do people in that situation deal with the anger and frustration emotions?
The human race the same. We just vent it out. I was telling somebody a few days ago, it says, "You're angry." I said, "You haven't heard me. When I get angry, the whole universe hears me." It's accepting as a cycle and just going with it and trying to do it. You get angry with a lot of things. You get angry with the process, especially in the peace talks. But I always say, stop, think there must be another way, and you walk away from it, and there is another way. I gave the Iranians a chance to open the hand of the Americans in negotiation. The Iranians were more interested in their private financial lockups of the Iranian leaders to get those out of the sanctions than the nation. I pushed the Iranians, cajole with them in every way. But the target is not the nation. The target was their private bank accounts. It's the first time we ever seen deputy head of the bank of a nation going into nuclear negotiation, unless there was some banking to be done. And this brought a big warning to me. So I separated the Keshe Foundation immediately and went directly through IAEA and the American structure. And we saw the result. Within a week, what was impasse for months became possible within days. Meeting directly with Mr. Barbary in a conference was a shock to him. He tried to deny everything. But you don't get angry, you just find a solution. Best for everyone. And from Monday to Friday, we got what we wanted. And they think they negotiated. The same have been influential in all the negotiations from 5+1. The 17th of November was the anniversary of 9 years of the beginning of the 5+1 negotiations. Slowly, we stood the wrap of it. We saw the way that they targeted. When we took Markray, we tried to bring a new technology into the market through Americans that influenced the nuclear and the space technology. We changed position. Nobody can touch us. But we won. And you don't get angry, you just get frustrated and you find another solution somewhere else, better solution. It means when something doesn't go right, it means there is something which is not good for you or for your soul. When things go smooth, it means that's the way it should be. Doesn't matter what it is. I cajoled with the Iranians for nearly a year and a half to go my way, to get the peace sorted. And private bank accounts of the Iranian leaders was more important than the nation. So Keshe Foundation and us became 5+3. And the 3 did the punch, and we got what we wanted. Americans knew they were cheated. Americans knew they were lied to. Americans knew they took action with a false information, but they didn't want to admit that they've been fooled by Netanyahu. So the easiest was, let's find to bring the sanctions to an end as fast as possible the way it was put on and all the allegations and the rest of it. And I get distressed, I get angry, but my anger goes to find a new solution, a new way to do it. And if you listen into what I'm teaching in past 2-3 weeks, I announced 5+3. The 3 became Keshe Foundation, and we did our punch, a very strong point. I will see the negotiations will go mostly by greed and Americans pressured not to lose. And we will see the outcome because Americans have lost their face heavily in negotiations in 5+1. French are with them, but not, they are next to them, but not with them, if I put it that way. Because French, the Germans, the British were cheated beyond imagination in the first round of negotiations of 5+1 when the first time was coming into action. Americans forced, and they announced anybody does any negotiation, anything, signs any agreement with Iran will be put a sanction on, while the American companies, agents were negotiating but not signing memorandum of understanding but no contract. And when the French and the British and the European went to Tehran to get consensus, oh, we signed a memorandum of understanding with Americans. And the French found out how the Americans literally turned them over. This time they're not doing. They are there in negotiation, but very aware of the situation now. And we saw that with President of France going to Middle East, signing a 14 billion arm deal with the United Arab Emirates. You can cross the whole country in 5 minutes. Why do you need 14, what do you call it, latest weapon machinery, which is no use to no one? We get angry, but we find a solution in wisdom. There's no shouting and howling. I went in to change the position, and we went in with IAEA. We got what we wanted. You got to realize, as I said to the Atomic Energy Authorities in Vienna, if you're a doctor, you're loyal to the structure of the medicine in your country and you sign to it. And I stayed with the nations and tried to cajole with them to understand. And I went to where I sit as a nuclear physicist with IAEA, and I punched it, and it was a big punch. Very simple, but so effective that IAEA was literally baffled by the truth how Americans have lied to them. The evidence is in black and white and on the table. And that was it. I didn't get angry. I sat down and find a wise way to do it. But if you want to see when I get angry, make sure you find another universe. There's not enough room in this universe. You find a solution. You find that there is a reason why he's here. With the stroke I had in early 40s, I go through a position of stress, but I walk away from it. I learned to walk away from it. My mother used to say the whole world can go to a smithereen. You'd never get angry. I wonder what makes you angry. I said, I don't know, Mom. It's just there. I take it the way it comes. She always said, you and your grandfather are cut from the same apple. It doesn't matter. I can never get you angry with anything. You talk your piece, but you never get angry with it. We win with the wisdom. And I never had so much pleasure than last week. All the rhetoric of big nations became just let's find something to agree with that we both know we both one is a fool and one is a fool the other one. And it's put beautifully in the report to IAEA and the whole nation. Just wait. reading from the report. I read you part of it. It says in a very, very simple way. It says now, who has fooled who? Iran advanced nuclear-space plasma technology has become weapon technology by misrepresentation and deception of the State of Israel. And now IEA knows how all these cameras and everything else is there. As I said to the Iranian head of securities and national officers, and they came out with a different thing, that the cameras in the nuclear centers are used by the State of Israel to create damage. No, the cameras used by the State of Israel to see who's working where and catching them outside and making them their spies. That's the biggest asset to the State of Israel, which Iranians allowed it. Cameras should be targeted on the machines, and when the office is going to repair or whatever, should be shut down. Nobody should know who's touching it. It's the same as what stupid Ahmadinejad did, giving the name and address and the home address of the scientists for the Israelis to kill them. Iranian officials have not understood how the cameras International Atomic Energy Authorities are used. They're targeted them to see who's working where, and they target them outside. And they bribe them, threaten them, and they work for them. IEA has to accept cameras has to be on the machine. And when a machine goes to repair or service, has to be shut down. Nobody sees who's working, who's walking. And the Iranians have not understood this. It's amazing. And it gets you angry with it, but you say, okay, that's their decision. Look at the communication in past 2 weeks, Iran making a complaint that the cameras are used by the Israelis to create, no, they're not after the machines, they were after personnel, and Iran never understood. We are nuclear physicists, we know what spot and where it sits what, but these are part of people who just look at their bankers and bring deputy bank, central bank officers to direct where the bribes go and which accounts should be open. Any other question?
Thank you, Mr. Kesh. From Ping Peter in the YouTube, the application of plasma technology has been and always will be for peace, but was mishandled and misrepresented by some world leaders. What happens to the souls of those who betrayed humanity?
Go back, it's in the teaching, very first teachings we explained. The biggest punishment is to be away. When you lose, you're distanced. The whole essence of what you call punishment or the end of the days or whatever is finding yourself in what position you are in respect to your Creator. That's all. The biggest punishment is when you're positioned furthest. That's the. It doesn't mean that the light of the Creator doesn't shine on you, but look at the structure of the creation and you understand. When you are close, you are made, you become a multi-facet, multi-joy structure. Look at the structure of the solar system. Look at the biggest stars in a further distance. And look at the Sari planet. And look at the planets closer to the sun. It's just a process of maturity you add to. Beginning, you're a mono, you're nothing, hydrogen or helium. As you come closer in the bone fields of the higher strength, then you create other materials to the point that you become part of. Earth wasn't created out of what we see today. It was as far distance where Pluto and Vesta are. As it became closer to the light, we gathered more facets, more multi-structure, more materials of different strength to show the beauty of the creator, what he has created. Not a single helium or whatever planet in the far distance. That's all it is. There is no punishment. It's a positioning of closeness to the creator. And that's by choice, not by accident. Any other question?
We had a question in YouTube from Krasmir about what product developments and new applications of the technology can we expect for 2022?
A lot. But we are going through evolution in the next few weeks, and it comes in different dimensions and directions. The problem is I'm a majority shareholder and controlling shareholder by far of Markray in the American stock market. And we will create a condition that the Knowledge and Products Education Foundation will become an international arena. We are working on it. If you have been to Markray, you've seen I resigned as CEO, but if you read the latest report, which was released on the 30th of September, annual report, Markray never reported for years. Now we are up to date, and you will see the end of report in 2 or 3 weeks' time for 2021. You will see a change, and in that change is that we bring a new dimension into whole structure of the work with the introduction of new structure, new work. And the same will come with our Chinese operation. We are restructuring Chinese operation because it was out of control. And now we see in next week, 10 days, how we restructure it in a way that is not what I wanted it. The same goes with Iran. And the same goes with Austria. Austria is expanding in a very, very rapid way. We will explain in due course, as we don't tell people anything anymore. We have a bunch of what I call pedophiles in Austria who lost their livelihood with trafficking children, and the ones who were in Belgium with them. And so we keep very tight, but you will see new the structure production. We are targeted. The biggest product we'll do is the what we call CO2 centers around the world, because it's good for the foundation and it's good for what we call the work we do. We've shown this view before, and it will become part of it. You will see these structures very soon, where in major cities, these structures will become part of, starting with Tehran. And these are where we will capture the CO2 in a massive proportion. We will reduce the what we call atmospheric condition. This is on the what we call planning, and then it will be delivered. We see about 10 centers like this in Tehran. We need 20 to 25 centers in Beijing and possibly in New York or Los Angeles. and the same in another point. And this is the bigger program than the small products. Each structure will cost millions, and it'll be done through different options open to Keshe Foundation. These are the large scale products, the enhancement centers, the opening of the first spaceship centers, like in Tehran. And as I said, you will see, if you are in the United States, you can go to Arizona and see the first flight system. It's very different than what you expected, but this is the practicality we deliver and we want to deliver. Then expansion into Brazil for a different way for us. Mexico has come up with new products, which is very much fits into the Mexican operation. They'll be brought in through the back of the MAPFRE, as Mexico is owned by MAPFRE, but it's still on the contractual basis of intellectual rights to Keshe Foundation. We target big products, big changes, health centers with new equipment, and you got to realize we've got to sell 1,000 or 10,000 products in a small product to do one enhancement center. Or as we have signed, the first flight systems have been signed and sold for 10 million. And so we try to support both sides, but 2021 is not to go on the shelves with the paint pens and other new products like this. A few will come up, but it's to push with a bigger picture of the Keshe Foundation worldwide, with enhancement centers, with wellness centers, which the Keshe Foundation has as part of his work we never disclosed. And then the same with what we call the big items, flight systems. We enter into ticket sale for space travel, which is part of our license. Keshe Foundation Space was signed into company this week, last Monday. The same with Keshe. KEF Spaceship Institute now is a legal entity as a company, not just on the internet, KEF SSI. And we have taken a lot of steps in these directions to make sure major new products, but in a large scale, come into operation. The water treatment centers, huge investments will come into operation, where we make the difference. But in our enhancement centers or in CO2 centers, where people will come and go, will create jobs to sell a small products or to show what the technology can be. Why? 2022 is the time of change. And it won't come through with paint pen and paint pad. It'll come through structures like this. Visible, powerful, and creating the change. We'll get involved in launching satellites, delivering satellites for less than a few $1,000s to any nation. We have the technology, we can do. All these launching and deliveries to orbit and whatever will become a history. This is where we'll bring the change. In 2022, 2023, we envisage the way we see it, colonization of the solar system is starting. This is why we invite big organizations into our work. We won't open banks on the moon or the Mars, but we create conditions that become easy the way you travel to see different part of this planet to go. When it come after 6th of June, we will see the collaboration starting. The biggest problem for us was the 5+1 tried. We hold the technology back now. Technology is in US, in Tehran, and in Europe, in Austria. So there is no problem for us to bring big people to play big games. Don't look for a small products. Keshe Foundation has a product. These leaves each cost millions to set. Any other question?
Yes, Mr. Kesh, in relation to that, Jan had a question in YouTube. The price of electricity is going through the sky in EU. In January, half the nuclear power plants in Germany will be shut down and it'll get worse. Why can't the Kesh Foundation launch its standalone generator?
You can do it yourself, isn't the teaching? We use partially this in the new enhancement centers, but I don't see why we have to teach it because we already taught it. Even for our centers, I don't see. We are building a factory in Iran to just produce maglev systems, and I gave them a few hints in how to create new reactors, and they built it and they put it in the houses, but they don't follow it up. They don't get it through. So this is one of my biggest problems. I don't give the spoon to eat. I show the way is for them to test it. Otherwise, it's just copy and do. And it's not going to work with me that way. You all have seen it. The center in Iran, seen it. It's ready to go. It's all been set up. But Knowledge is getting around, have to decide how they're going to change it. They're going to stay with the maglev proposition or go for the generator, and the knowledge is there. It's, don't ask, I can show you how to do it in no time. And it's called back into the blueprint day of the maglev. Is in one of the pieces, is about 3 minutes. I show the generator how to be done. It'll work. Nobody understood. 7 years, 8 years. Look how energy is generated in the universe. And look how you make the maglev. And if you don't understand it, you can still push with nano layers on the gases. Look at the light. If you are somewhere, it's a daylight today. And look how it's created. And nobody uses it. I don't give anything free to no one just because they're there and they're called knowledge. I didn't know that with my children. I never do, because it means you haven't understood what's the use of game, because you never respect, you never comprehend what it is. You make a step. One person more or less has made more and more intro break with the maglev system than anybody else in the Keshe Foundation. And that's Alex in Nigeria. But he still doesn't see it. He hits it, but he misses it. Even with our research center in Europe, I don't give them that. I just suggest why. And let's see what they understand. If you just carbon copy what I say every time, I'm the researcher, not you. You're just a printing machine copying. The generator has been there from day one. We first created energy before we created lift. We first created energy before we created the maglev. Even when we worked months in the background before introduction of the maglevs with our team in Philippines. So many days I woke up early in the morning and the testing and making coiling, nano coating, fire coating, and the rest of it. But in 2-3 points we reached and they just missed it. The problem with me is I'm not here to give. I'm here to guide. When you give, there is no respect. When you guide, then you understand. You do it yourself and you respect the knowledge you received. Any other question?
Mr.
Okay,
Kesh,
thank you,
it's,
Mr.
Dean here. Sorry, Rick. Can
Oh,
I
go
ask
ahead,
you
Dean.
a question? Thank you, Rick. Mr. Kesh, are we still? Are you still planning to go to the moon in 2022? And this excursion, will it open up the space travel for man and the whole situation across the planet, so that the
We're not going
systems
to
are-
carry 7 billion in this year. We're going to show the way.
Okay.
Then we have to see how things go and how governments and how people operate. But operating in 3 different nations at the same time, we don't allow the silencing of the technology. One of the reasons I do not do the test in China, because I believe there's still technology. They've done that with disrespect. When Lynn and I attended, we were invited to a meeting to meet with the Chinese space people. And the last minutes in the morning when we were supposed to meet them, they came and says, "Oh, you don't need to come. We go from the national security and we come back and tell you." So what's the purpose of if we were supposed to meet? We go and see them when we come back. And they come back and says, "They have made your system, but they don't have the fuel combination. Can you give it to them?" I said to them, "You know where to go." And then it would have become a Chinese, and then it would become a peace in the war between America. So they don't deserve. They have to stay in the queue. Now they go to America to live. Chinese betrayed the Keshe Foundation in stealing technology. And I responded back heavily with it. When the Chinese government declared their position that what they stole from the Keshe, and what they said was very interesting. They see it as their right because I've given it to my knowledge. So if it's their right, it's your right to go and find out yourself. It will not happen with China, but it will happen in Tehran, it will happen in Arizona, it will happen in Austria, and we show it. But the space belongs to everyone. And then let's see what they do. The
Thank you,
peace
Mr. Kesh.
treaty will come very, very fast once we show the flight system, but in different countries. Nobody can silence it.
Thank you, Mr. Kesh. Can I just
Let me
the
explain to you
interaction of the
something.
fields.
Let me explain to you something. You know, when you're in the room, you don't see any dust particles. You just see it's just the room. Till you shine a beam of light and you see how much dust particles are floating in the room. The human race is in that position in the next few months. We are about to show you how to create that light through the technology, understanding the flight system. And when you reach that point of understanding and development, you become the creator of that light, that you will see how many other flight systems are within your environment but you've never been aware of. The space around Earth is literally covered with flight system beyond man's imagination. And once you reach that point, you become that beam in the dark void, you will see dust particles. You will see them. Then you say, "Oh my God." And we are about that point to reach. But we have to uproot killing out of this race. Superiority has to come by respect for knowledge, not by gun policy. And even then, you have to become humble enough to share. You will see,
Mr. Kesh.
once we reach the flight system, the new understanding of the flight, then you will see how many others around you never knew. Because now you have a way to show it. It's always been there, the dust around the house all the time. Then you walk the carpet and you create more of it. And now you become part of the universal community, understand the rest of the universe travels. Now you see the things you've never seen before. I wonder if the American president is going to put sanctions on everyone, every single dust.
Thank you, Mr. Kesh. That sort of opens everything up. It's, changes everything. Thank you. Wonderful. My other question was going to be slightly different in the fact that the interaction of the fields on a planetary scale. So would it be important if the Earth came first or the Moon came first into the creation? Would that have an effect?
Well, it's irrelevant. Moons are created by the interaction of the fields between the sun and the earth, or any object, as the residual field effects creates a condition that it leads to creation of the secondary position absorption. It doesn't come by a stroke. There are fields which in interaction, they do not match, but they're similar. So they create their own dimension. And with that, they create their own gravity, then they find their own positioning because they came from the interaction of the field of the Earth with the sun, not themselves.
So when that light is shone on in the dust, it's the same process?
What do you mean? You see, let me explain this. Let me explain something which is, I explained this to cosmologists and people in astronomy. The dust we see on the moon, the addition of the dust we see on the moon, is a very, very small, partially due to the gravitational magnetic field of the moon itself. But primarily is the leftover of the interactions of the fields of the Earth with the sun. Sun does not have the gravitational pull for these materials. They get attracted to the moon, or because that becomes a vacuum system for it. Otherwise, the Earth will be cluttered with. We'll have ring and ring of different materials. So moons are collection point of, even they look the same, but slightly different isotopes, which Earth does not possess the gravitational field. But the interaction of the field of the Earth and the sun creates them. And once they're created, they have to be absorbed somewhere, otherwise they clutter over the whole atmosphere of the Earth. And that's what the job of the moons is. That's why we see moons, the dust covering, and step by step, layer by layer over the moon. And this is what a lot of scientists or cosmology astronomers don't understand at all. We have iron or zinc or copper on the moon, but not gravitational field, the strength of the Earth. Otherwise, it would be absorbed, become part of the Earth layers. And this is why we see a big planet with many moons, because the field interaction creates the atmosphere or condition of the life on the planet. But in that interaction, it creates other materials which planet does not have the gravitational pull for. So They are created and they can't stay in the atmosphere. They come in interacting with each other and they create the moons. We usually see a lot of moons with a very big planetary system with mono or very few atomic structure within the structure of their physicality. The inertia does not have the pull to convert the plasma into matter state. But so as they are created, they are in the atmosphere, they interact with each other and they ball up into a new plasma, new moon. Moons are vacuum system of the energies, plasmatic energies, which the planet itself does not have the field of, but it creates out of the byproducts. And this is not been understood by the world of the astronomy and cosmology. And once they understand this, then we'll see it. When we bring materials from the moon, we'll see, yes, there's aluminum, but which isotopes of the magnetic field, gravitational pull? You'll never find, very hardly any, the same on moon and earth, the same aluminum. Impossibilities. Or they are created in a very far, far distance from earth that earth has no pull on them and they can attract it, but we continuously produce it by the interaction of the fields. So this is never understood by the world of space and scientists. And this is part of the work within in what we call material enhancement. This is what I declared to the IEA, we can reach 100% enrichment. They don't want, no one knows that the Iranian scientists can produce science. That will be a mayhem in negotiation. Bullet right in the heart of the negotiation.
Thank you, Mr. K. That's very comprehensive and enhancing answer. Thank you very much for answering my question.
Yeah, you got to realize, especially those of you who join us in the space program in the 3 central points, that once we start creating, what do you call it, the flight system, and we take flight, we have the same problem too. The interaction of the fields of the system will create, in interaction with the field of the environment, fields as a plasma energy. It's just the way you've seen it when you put a iron against a stone and all the flashes you get, that some of these are not usable by the system because we can use most of these energy sources for our flight system. And they gather as little packages of energy that if it's not controlled, they become like a missile to the craft itself. You will see it, you will understand it very soon. In the present time in the space, with the rubbish we throw out of the space lab or in satellites become the rubbish dangerous to other satellites or space lab. But in the plasma technology, flight system, maglev system, we create these things ourselves in the process of flight. We need to be able to control that continuously. We get rid of this layer of fields which are created around the system. You know nothing about the flight yet till we get to it and we start teaching you. You become the missile maker of your own demise if you don't understand the technology. There's no difference between the flight system made by us and the creation of planetary system. Any other question?
Thank you, Mr. Kesh. So it is creation. It is. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Kesh.
Yeah, we have a couple of comments here. Perhaps I'll read first from Joel. Wanted to say hello, Mr. Kesh. Thank you for all that you have given to us. Here in France, all your teachings, your technology applies in different domains and changes the way of life in a better way. A big thank you to you.
Thank you very much. I presume this is Joe who's doing a lot of research in agriculture. And thank you very much for your work. You've given me one of the most beautiful videos to watch and to see how things can change and how it could be. And thank you for all your effort in France.
Okay, and we also have a question from Alexandra from Brazil, who says, I recognize my smallness before the greatness and truths of the Creator. I had several dreams and answers to my questions. My heart and soul felt the birth of Mithra, but forgive my smallness. My soul felt it, but my physical eyes wanted to see something on the 21st. And he goes
Go to
on.
your soul and you will see the physicality of Mithra that has been made possible. Now you have to find the strength in your solar physicality to be able to match your soul, and you shall see Mithra.
Okay, they go on. From all the learning you have brought and the little I have known, my soul's greatest desire today is to teach children about your plasma technology. The children are the future, and my only concern today is to teach the children, and I will give of my soul to teach the children about the beauties that you brought and have taught us.
Thank you very much. The new soul of Mithra comes through the soul of the children to be born from now. And we will see a difference between the upcoming race and the race to come, or has been. Mankind has changed and will change. No choice. You know, in a Orthodox Catholic Church, you bring in Saint Nicholas, the gift bearer for children. And that gift of Saint Nicholas, which looks like a Father Christmas, comes on the 6th of December. And the children wait. And when you speak to the Europeans, a lot of children wait for Saint Nicholas to bring the present. Children get 2 Christmas presents. One is Saint Nicholas Day, the Day of Children, and one the Christmas Day. And I was talking to some friends, and they say children wake up in the morning and look in the shoe. If they receive the sweetie, they've been a good children, or they receive the straw in their shoe, they've been a bad children the year before. And to see how they change. And I hope all of you have received the sweets in your shoes of the knowledge. The children of the man has changed and will change from now on. They will understand more about the work of the soul and live through it than the dimension of physicality. Because we bring them to the what I call the cycle of no need to kill, no need to destroy, no need to be better than the other, because we're all the same. The new school of teaching for those knowledge seekers who are there is to teach how you can live through example of not killing and not being there to do. If you knew what has happened to mankind, you will weep, but mankind is not wise to it. I'm sure many of you will see Mithra in your physical eyes in the time to come, and you will still not recognize it.
Mr. Kesh, Stefania had a question regarding that picture of Mithra that we showed previously with the, perhaps I can bring it up here and override your screen share temporarily. Let's see, let me get the plain picture rather than my...
Oh, your beautiful face. Or maybe the bear.
There we go. There's the plain picture. Oops, I got it in the wrong screen. There we go, over there. And I think that's it there. Okay, so we see in the picture the 3 figures And on left is Mithra. On the right would be, I assume, the creator or the God absolute, let's say. And so Stephania's question is that in the picture of Mithra, the three figures, are they like the three M fields, I think three matter fields, to make tangible matter?
I think Mahsad explained this in a very good detail on Tuesday. And if you go in the theology side of it, it's the presence of the Creator and its light on man, and how man considers himself to be the king as the light of the Creator shines on him. And there are a few details in this picture you don't take notice of, you only see the big one. And there's a very funny way one of the pictures are, Mahsad is Mahsad there, from France. She explained this very, very beautifully into the details of it on Tuesday in the One Nation, One Planet. But there's a striking features that people don't see. And is she around? She could explain it. Do you see her in the background?
Sorry, what was the name again, Mr. Kish?
The lady from the Iranian lady from France, member of the Universal Council support team.
Is that Sylvain, perhaps, from UC Support France?
No, the Iranian lady.
Oh, okay.
Yes. The Persian lady, the
Persian
Asian,
lady.
Iranian,
There
whatever
she
you
is.
like.
Yes.
Thank you,
Would
sir.
you like to explain this? You explained this beautifully in the Tuesday teaching. But if you expand the picture, the whole thing is not about the three men standing next to each other or three features. Is the thing which they're standing on. But even what they're standing on has a totally different approach to it. Would you like to explain this with what they're standing on counts, not the feature of the man? This carving is not about Ahura Mazda on the right, or Mithra on the left, or the king of Persia in the center. It's about the emotional feeling, the respect and understanding with what they stand on. Would you like to explain it, please, Mahsad?
Yes, sir. In fact, this is in a place, it's called the Dome of Bustan Garden. And there is a lake under this mountain. It's near Kermanshah. And it's very big, maybe 20 meters. And the story is that at the left, it's Mithra. And Mithra is giving benediction to Shapur, the king in the middle, which has his foot on a body under his foot, which is the emperor of Rome, which has been conquered and been his slave, being under his command. And at the right is Ahura Mazda, which is the divinity and God, which gives him the alliance. And at the other side, Mithra gives him the benediction, that his power comes from the benediction of Mithra. That's why he's the king. And Mithra is on a flower of lotus, which has meaning in other philosophies, so that the king knows that he should be humble. And his power is given by benediction of Mithra. and Ahura Mazda. Otherwise, he doesn't have this power to conquer other places.
In a way, conquering his own, what we call emotion, conquering his own ego. In time of power, is still to be humble, to rely on the Creator and to receive the enlightenment. And more or less after this position, what we see historically is the time when many leaders in Central Asia and what we call Eastern Europe self-submittingly gave their kingdom to the king, what they call it, the Emperor of Persia, because it was just being just. This picture, this what you see, has a lot of historical meaning in the background. What happened to the Iranian, how Iranian Empire, Persian Empire was created, where what you call knowing that there is, even at the time of the power, there is something you need to be part of and to receive from. But what is interesting is that the way this is carved, the face looks up, but the foot looks down. And this has a lot of meaning in the future. We explain in more detail. But in a way, being on top of the world as a leader, as an emperor, or as a king of Persia, he still submissively accepts that he still needs the light of the Creator. And he knows he receives it through a light, not through the Creator himself.
Yes, when I was in Persepolis, there is a human rights cylinder, which the king, I think it's Khashayar, Cyrus.
Cyrus.
No, I think the son or the son of his son has made it, which is in United Nations, it seems, and the original. And it's funny because I had never studied it in my schooling, and it shows the wisdom of this king. It has been written in 4 administration languages at the time about governing. And the little I wrote, it's 1 page, it says to the kings, you should be just and keep the people happy with your justice. Otherwise, people go against you. And I was very amazed of this wisdom of these great kings, which had been everywhere. So sometimes we don't know our culture and histories the way we are taught in school, the important points. And of course, Cyrus is very famous, and we are very proud even in school, from school, that he was giving the liberty of religion, practicing every country's religions, and liberating the Jews and all that. So we were proud of our culture, of that part of our culture which has to do with giving liberty to people, especially liberty of religion, which is still, when I was there, it was like that. Every religion was free and respected, minority, but free and respected, because we have other minorities. Each city has their own customs and dialects. So we are a mixture of all these with respect and interest to what's the difference, how they do, it's kind of a melting pot. So that's how they were great, because they were open and they were giving freedom to others to do what they really feel like doing in their hearts.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other question, or shall we call it a day to go faster to get ready for Christmas?
Sure, Mr. Kesh, that would probably be a good idea. I think you've covered most of the questions here. There might be a couple left over.
We always have a
can-
couple left at the end.
Yep, they usually
But it
come
never
around again.
finishes. Thank you very much for today. Thank you much. We celebrate the birth of Mitra, and in true way, the return of Mitra amongst us, and understanding the totality of the structure of the creation. If you're celebrating the path of Christ, Mitra in another name and shape or form, creator for others to understand how the creator works. We wish you a beautiful time in celebrating the Christmas and the celebration of birth of Christ. And in that process, I hope, not hope, but I know for a fact 2022 will be beginning of a new race for human race, new beginning of newer school of thought. Not a vision, but a must. Not a vision that will happen, but what is going to happen. In 2023 and 2024, most of us will not even want to remember 2021 and before, as there is so much hope, there is so much joy, and there is so much to be added, that the hardship of the past for us and our forefathers have gone through has been paving the road for better human race, not only here, but in space. Wish you a beautiful Christmas and New Year. And as I always said, I'm servant to the presence of Mitra. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you once again, Mr. Kesh, for another Knowledge Seekers workshop teaching here today. We'll be back on Tuesday, I believe, which is, let's get the date on that. Tuesday, the 28th, for the One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace and Justice. And we wish everyone a Merry Christmas, which will be coming up in a couple of days here. And we'll see you back next week for another Knowledge Seekers workshop as well. I'll end the workshop with a couple of product advertisements from the Keshe Foundation store, and we'll see you all next time around. Thank you.